A very warm welcome to all of you. My name is Piyush and I teach Indian polity, international relations, and political science and international relations for the UPSC Civil Services examination. In the previous sessions, we have discussed the nuances around optional and we also saw how to approach the PSIR optional. We discussed about the timelines and we discussed about the importance of conceptual clarity, answer writing, as well as test series. Today, we'll see how exactly we have to go into paper 1 and paper 2 of the subject. Now, when we talk about paper 1 and paper 2 of the subject, if you see, the paper 1 is further divided into two parts. One is the political theory and thought, and second is the Indian government and politics. Generally for optionals, at least the social sciences, you will have static portions in paper 1, dynamic in paper 2. In PSIR, we have dynamic aspects in both paper 1 and paper 2. We'll see where they are. First, starting with political theory and thought from paper 1. One important clarification which I want to make at this point of time is that when we start preparing for paper 1, political theory and thought part should be started first. There are many students who start with Indian government and politics part. I'm not suggesting that it's a wrong way of doing things. All I'm saying is this is a theoretical part, this is a conceptual part, and this is something which you should give a lot of time to understand, and this is where you'll need to have a good command over answer writing also. Not saying you don't need answer writing here, but this part is new for you. This part is not new because you may be doing the same thing in GS already, or you might have done it already, or you may do it over a period of time in your GS also. So this part can be done relatively easily. Obviously, there are some differences that has to be taken into account, but on a very general level, start with this part. Invest a lot of time in this part, learn the perspectives in this part, and then you can easily move towards this part. An important aspect, this is concepts. This is nothing but application of those concepts in the Indian context. That is what is Indian government and politics, the GS2 part, which we discussed earlier. So when it comes to political theory and thought, first thing is that this part is conceptual in nature. This will demand more time. This is interesting also, depending on obviously how you are taught. This is a very interesting part. At the same time, the good part about this is it is static. Whatever the syllabus is, most of the research has already been done. If some new research comes, we'll add it to our content, but for more than 90% of the syllabus of this part, things are static. So we need to understand the concepts, we need to have good notes, and then we need to memorize, and then we have to reproduce by answer writing, and then we are set for this part. We don't have to worry too much for this part. Indian government and politics part, again, conceptual and factual. A lot of factual details we'll have to take into consideration, but you'll be doing the same thing in GS2 also, so not that big of a problem. Here you will have static parts plus dynamic parts also. Dynamic part will not be too much. Most part is static only because static themes are asked again and again with respect to Indian government and politics. Few things which are important over a period of last 2-3 years, they come in the dynamic part, and we have to cover those themes also. This is paper 1 for you. This part, static in orientation. Here we'll see the works of various thinkers. We'll see the Western political thought, Indian political thought. What exactly is the syllabus for each part? That also I'll be discussing maybe in the next session. But in this session, this is something which you have to keep in mind. Okay. So you understand the concept, you apply the concept. Then you have paper 2. Paper 2 is about, one is comparative politics. Second is theory of IR. There are some associated topics also along with theory of IR, which we'll discuss when we discuss the topics in detail. And paper 2, part 2 is India and world. Let's call this part B. Let's call this part A. Let's call this part B. Let's call this part A. So part A of paper 2, which is comparative politics, this is largely static in nature, whereby you have to compare the political systems For example, UK also has a parliamentary form of government. We also have a parliamentary form of government. But in UK, the political culture is different from what the political culture is in India. Political culture is different because the nature of society is different. Modern society, ours is a traditional society, or certain parts are in the transition. How this societal variations affect the political culture and eventually the politics of a nation, and finally the policy of a country also. Comparative politics. However, a good part is a lot of things are static in orientation. Then comes the theory of IR. Now it's a very interesting part. Theory of IR. Theory of international relations is nothing but understanding those concepts which finally lead to international relations. Part B is India and world. India and world is nothing but international relations. International relations are conducted on the bedrock of certain concepts. What those concepts are? Theoretical concepts. We'll study theories here. There are theories of international relations, there are concepts in international relations, and then the application of this is nothing but international relations. It's a very, very interesting part, especially for those who like international relations. This is what we study here. In this part, we will have both static plus dynamic elements. How to cover static and dynamic? Wait for that part. Finally is India and world, which you all know. International relations, India's relations with, let's say, South Asia, West Asia, Southeast Asia, India's relations with great powers like US, Russia, China, Japan, EU, India and world. This portion is dynamic in nature. This portion is most dynamic in nature. But let me also tell you that there is a big myth around this part, that the dynamism of this part makes it a very difficult portion. No, the dynamism definitely is there, but there are many themes which are repeated in this section. Because the themes are repeated, so the good part is the themes can be predicted. It's a predictable part. We can predict what can be the questions of this particular year. Definitely we'll have to prepare new content on this also. So, but a very interesting part. This part you will cover in GS2 also. This part you will cover in GS2 also. So in previous sessions when we talked about the overlap, entire overlap, okay, rest overlap exists. Here the overlap is with GS1. Here the overlap with this GS3 also. This overlap exists with the ethics part, which is GS4. Here this part will also have an overlap with the essay paper. So that is how the paper has to be seen. Okay. I hope again I was able to add a little bit more value to your understanding of the subject. Stay tuned for more. In the next part, I'll be discussing what exactly can be the sources which can be referred, the book list which can be referred for all these 4 parts. Having said this, thank you so much everyone and all the very best.